The galaxy was full of powerful species, giants of iron skin, creatures of fire, and minds that could bend metal without touching it. Yet, among all of them, Commander Zera believed humans were the weakest. To her, they were nothing more than soft-skinned animals. Their bodies broke too easily. Their blood spilled too fast. She had seen them scream in pain, collapse on battlefields, and die without honor. Compared to her own kind, humans were fragile insects. Zera had captured many human soldiers before. Some cried, some begged, some even tried to fight back with broken bones and trembling hands. None of them lasted long. None of them impressed her. But this time, something was different. The alien warship floated in silence above a dead planet. Inside, the air was cold, the walls made of black steel. In the center chamber, a single human prisoner was strapped to a glowing table. His name was not known to Zera. To her, he was just another subject for testing. Zera stood tall, her silver armor shining in the dim light. Her sharp eyes watched the prisoner as the scientists prepared their tools. Around her, her crew moved carefully, whispering in low voices. "Commander," one of the scientists said, "the subject is stable. He has already suffered great blood loss, but his body remains alive." Zera smirked. "Of course he is alive. Humans cling to life like insects, but they are still weak." The scientist nodded and lifted a blade that glowed with energy. He looked at the commander for permission. Zera raised her hand. "Begin." The blade cut across the human's side. The sound was sharp, like glass breaking. Blood poured out, red and hot. The prisoner gasped but did not scream. His chest rose and fell heavily, but his eyes stayed open. Zera leaned closer, watching with cold interest. "Pathetic," she muttered. "He will fade within minutes." But then, something happened. The wound began to close, slowly at first, then faster. The red flesh pulled together as if invisible hands were stitching it shut. Within moments, the bleeding stopped. The skin sealed itself, leaving only a faint scar. The chamber fell silent. The scientists froze. The guards stared with wide eyes. Even Zera stepped back. This is impossible," the scientist whispered. "Commander, his body, he heals by himself." Zera's face hardened. "Run the scans again." Machines hummed, screens lit up with strange symbols. The data made no sense. The human cells were rebuilding themselves faster than any species they had studied. His heartbeat grew stronger. His breathing steadied. He should have been dying, but instead, he was recovering. The prisoner opened his eyes. They were calm, steady, almost mocking. He looked at Zera, not with fear, but with something far more dangerous: confidence. Zera narrowed her eyes. "What trick is this? Speak, human." The man's lips curved into the faintest smile. His voice was quiet, but clear. "Not a trick. This is what we are." The words hung in the air like a dark shadow. The guards shifted nervously. One of them muttered, "It is not natural. He is a monster." Zera silenced them with a gesture, though inside her mind, questions burned. How could this be? Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile, breakable. She looked again at the prisoner. His breathing was steady now. His wound was gone. His eyes glowed with a fire she had never seen in any other captive. For the first time in her long career, Commander Zera felt a chill crawl up her spine. The crew whispered behind her. Fear was growing. One scientist said, "If this human can heal like this, how many more can do the same?" Zera snapped, "Silence!" But the thought echoed in her own mind. If one human could survive such wounds, what about the rest of them? Were they all hiding this secret? She turned back to the prisoner. "You will tell me the truth, or I will make you suffer until you break." The man chuckled softly. "You can try. But remember this, Commander. Humans do not break as easily as you think." The sound of his laughter filled the chamber, low and unsettling. Zara clenched her fists. She had faced warriors with claws, monsters with teeth sharper than blades, and empires that burned worlds to ash. Yet none of them had made her feel this uneasy. This human, strapped and wounded, should have been helpless. Instead, he was the one making her question everything. The ship's lights flickered. The air felt heavy. The silence was louder than any scream. And in that silence, Zara finally admitted something to herself. Perhaps humans were not weak after all. Perhaps they were something else. Something dangerous. Something the galaxy had never truly understood, and in that moment, Commander Zira realized this prisoner was not just another test subject. He was a mystery, a threat, a secret that could change everything she believed about the universe. The chamber still felt cold after what they had witnessed. Commander Zira stood silent, her eyes fixed on the human who should have been broken, but was instead breathing stronger with every passing second. Her soldiers avoided looking at him. Her scientists hesitated to even approach. Zara, however, was not a leader who allowed fear to rule. She straightened her armor and gave the order, "Prepare him for deeper tests." The crew hesitated, exchanging nervous glances. None of them wanted to touch the man who healed faster than machines could record, but Zara's sharp gaze left them no choice. Two guards stepped forward and unstrapped him from the glowing table, locking magnetic cuffs around his wrists and ankles. The prisoner did not resist. He stood tall, his calm eyes watching everything, as if he were not the one in chains, but the one in control. The laboratory was hidden deep inside the warship, a place of glass tubes, humming machines, and glowing monitors. Strange liquids bubbled inside transparent cylinders, and sharp instruments gleamed under the cold light. The air smelled of metal and electricity. Zara followed as her scientists led the human into the center of the lab. They secured him upright, against a restraint frame, metal arms locked into place around his chest and legs. "Commander," one scientist whispered nervously, "if he heals this quickly, our usual methods will not work. We may not learn anything new." Zara's eyes narrowed. "Then push harder, break him again. If he can heal, I want to know how far it goes." The scientist swallowed his fear and activated the machinery. Thin, mechanical arms reached out, piercing the human's skin with needles. Glowing fluid was injected into his veins, an alien serum designed to damage cells and reveal weaknesses. Normally, this test left victims screaming in pain, their bodies writhing as their organs shut down. But the human only clenched his jaw. His body shivered once, then steadied. His breathing grew rough for a moment, before returning to normal. The monitors spiked with impossible readings. The serum was being burned away by his own blood. His cells were repairing themselves faster than the toxin could spread. The scientist gasped. "His immune system, it adapts instantly. It is rewriting itself." Zara's heart pounded, though her face remained stern. She stepped closer, staring into the prisoner's eyes. "You should be dying," she said coldly. "And yet you stand." The man tilted his head slightly, his lips curving into that unsettling smile again. "I told you. Humans do not die so easily." Frustration flashed in Zara's eyes. "Increase the dosage, double it." The scientists obeyed. More of the glowing fluid rushed into his body. This time his chest heaved and sweat rolled down his face. His body trembled violently against the restraints. For a brief moment it seemed the serum had finally taken hold. But then his muscles tightened, his skin pulsed with heat, and the trembling stopped. His heartbeat steadied, the toxin dissolved, and before their eyes the wounds left by the needles closed in seconds. The entire room fell silent. One of the younger guards whispered, voice trembling, What are these creatures?" The human's voice broke the silence. Low, calm, dangerous. "You think strength is about size, about claws, about armor, but true strength is something else. It is the will to keep going when everything tries to break you. That is what humans are." His words carried no arrogance, only truth, and that truth shook the crew more than any weapon could. Zara felt her soldiers shrinking back, Fear was spreading like wildfire. If they believed humans were unkillable, morale would collapse. She could not allow that. She stepped forward, forcing her voice to stay firm. Enough. Run a surgical test, open his body, see what hides inside him. The scientist hesitated, but one obeyed. A blade extended from the machine, humming with energy. Slowly it pressed into the human's skin, cutting deeper than before. Blood spilled, dark and red. His teeth clenched, but he did not scream. Zahra leaned closer, watching every detail. She wanted to see fear in his eyes. She wanted to see weakness. Instead, she saw fire. The wound closed almost as quickly as the blade cut. His skin knitted itself back together even as the tool tried to slice again. The machine jammed, sparks flying. The human stood there, chest rising and falling, his eyes never leaving hers. "I will not break for you," he said quietly. The tension in the room was unbearable now. One scientist stepped back, shaking his head. "Commander, I fear we are the ones being studied here." Those words cut deeper than any blade. Zahra spun on him with rage. "Silence!" she roared. But inside she knew the scientist was right. For the first time in her life, Commander Zahra was not the hunter. She was standing before something that looked human but felt like a storm in disguise. The prisoner lowered his voice, almost like a whisper. But everyone in the lab heard him. "You are afraid because you thought we were weak. But weakness is what made us strong. Every pain, every wound, every struggle, it taught us to adapt, it taught us to endure. That is why we survive." Zahra clenched her fists. His words unsettled her. But she would never show weakness in front of her crew. She turned to her scientists. "Lock him down. Keep running tests until we find his limit." But as she spoke, a thought crept into her mind. One she could not push away. What if he has no limit? The monitors beeped louder, the machines recorded impossible numbers, and the crew avoided the human's gaze. And in that heavy silence, Zahra realized something terrifying. This was only the beginning. The alien warship felt different after the experiments. The corridors were still made of the same black steel, the light still cold and harsh, but something invisible filled the air. Fear. Unease. Whispers that the prisoner was not just a man, but something more. Commander Zahra walked through the halls, her armored boots echoing against the floor. Soldiers straightened when they saw her, but their eyes betrayed them. They avoided speaking of it, but she knew what they were thinking. The human had survived everything. Wounds, toxins, surgery. And still, he stood, alive and unbroken. Zahra hated doubt, yet it gnawed at her. What was he really? And what were his people hiding? When she entered the holding chamber again, the man was still there, chained to the restraint frame. His head was lowered, but his breathing was steady, calm, like he was resting instead of imprisoned. Zahra studied him for a moment, then spoke. Her voice was sharp, demanding. "You should be dead. And yet you stand before me stronger than before. What are you?" The human slowly raised his head. His eyes locked on hers, steady and fearless. "I told you already," he said quietly. "I am human." The simplicity of his words unsettled her more than any scream would have. Zahra's anger flared. She motioned to her scientists. "Bring the translator sphere. I want every word clear." The machine was placed between them, glowing faintly, as it synchronized their languages. "Now," Zahra said, stepping closer. "Explain yourself. What trick allows you to heal? What technology hides inside your body?" The human's lips curved into a faint smile. "There is no trick, no hidden machine. It is only what we are." One of the scientists scoffed nervously. "Impossible. No species adapts this fast. It defies biology." The human turned his head slightly toward the scientist. "Your people measure strength by what can be broken. Our strength comes from what cannot." His calm voice made the room colder. Zahra narrowed her eyes. "You speak of strength, yet your species is fragile, soft, weak. I have seen your kind fall easily." The young man's expression hardened. "Yes, we bleed, we break, we die, but we always return. That is what you don't understand. His voice grew sharper, filled with a quiet fire. We survived ice ages, plagues, wars that burned entire nations. We faced monsters of our own making and still endured. Pain is our oldest teacher. Survival is our oldest memory. The crew shifted uneasily. His words carried weight, as if every syllable came not from pride, but from history itself. Zara forced herself not to look away. If what you say is true, prove it. Show me. The human tilted his head. Do you want proof, Commander? Very well. Cut me again. Do it in front of them. The soldiers froze. None dared move. They looked at Zara, waiting. Her pride burned. She could not refuse. Slowly she drew her blade, its edge humming with energy. She stepped forward, pressing it against the man's arm. The blade cut deep, slicing muscle and skin. Blood ran down his arm, dripping to the floor. Gasps filled the chamber. Zara stepped back, eyes fixed on the wound. At first, blood poured freely. Then, as before, the skin began to knit itself. The flow slowed, the torn flesh sealed, the cut, closing before their very eyes. Within seconds, the wound was gone. Only a faint line remained. The soldiers whispered in disbelief. One muttered, "No creature should be able to..." The human raised his voice, silencing them. "You see now? Pain does not end us. It makes us stronger." Zara's grip tightened on her weapon. Her soldiers were trembling. She could feel their fear rising. Some stepped back, as though the man in chains was more dangerous than the weapons in their hands. The scientist who had doubted earlier whispered, "If this is true, Commander, if all humans can do this..." He trailed off, unable to finish. Zara turned sharply. "Enough. Do not spread fear." But even as she spoke, she knew fear was already spreading like fire through her crew. The prisoner's eyes locked on hers. Again. Calm. Certain. "You thought humans were prey, but what you call weakness is our greatest strength. You have no idea what we can endure, and you are afraid to find out." His words struck deeper than any blade. For the first time, Zara's certainty cracked. She had built her life on control, on dominance, on the belief that her species was stronger than all others. But here stood a man, unarmed, chained, bleeding, who made her question everything. The chamber grew silent, heavy with unspoken truth. Zara finally spoke, her voice lower, more cautious. "If your kind can heal like this, if you can survive, what should kill you, then what else can you do?" The human did not smile this time. His eyes darkened and his answer was simple. "More than you can imagine." The lights flickered. The hum of the warship seemed louder, and in that moment Zara understood something terrifying. This man was not a single miracle. He was a window into a species the galaxy had ignored, underestimated, mocked as weak. If what he said was true, then humanity was not prey. They were predators in waiting, and if unleashed, they could change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The warship was a fortress of black steel, built to crush rebellions and strike terror across the stars. But now the terror was inside its own walls. The crew no longer feared the enemy outside. They feared the man in chains. Commander Zara stood on the bridge, overlooking the galaxy through a wall of glass. Her soldiers worked in silence, their movements stiff, their eyes restless. They whispered to each other when they thought she wasn't listening. Their fear was a sickness spreading through the ship, and she could feel it growing stronger every hour. When Zara entered, conversations died instantly. Faces turned back to the screens, but she saw the trembling in their hands. Her crew had fought in countless wars, but never had they looked this way. She knew why. They had all seen the human heal. They had all seen him smile through pain. He was no longer a prisoner to them. He was a shadow that haunted their thoughts. Zara clenched her jaw. Weakness was poison. Fear was worse. If she allowed this sickness to grow, her entire ship would collapse into chaos. "Status report," she demanded. A young officer swallowed hard. All systems stable, Commander, but crew morale is low. Low? Zara's voice cut like a blade. We are warriors of the Empire. Morale does not break because of one fragile creature. The officer nodded quickly, but his eyes betrayed the truth. They all knew the creature was anything but fragile. Later, in the mess hall, whispers spread like wildfire. Soldiers huddled, together speaking in low, urgent tones. He healed in seconds. I saw it with my own eyes. No poison could stop him. What if all humans can do this? Some called him a monster. Others called him immortal. A few even began to wonder if he was more than flesh, some kind of hidden weapon disguised as a man. And in every corner of the room, fear wrapped itself tighter around them. Zara summoned her inner circle to the strategy chamber. The air shimmered with holograms of star maps, but none of them were looking at the stars. They were thinking of the prisoner below. One of her commanders finally spoke. We cannot keep him aboard. He unsettles the crew. Already discipline is breaking. Some guards refused to stand near his cell. Zara's eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting we release him? No, Commander. I am suggesting we end him. Kill him before his influence spreads further. The others murmured in agreement. For once, Zara did not answer immediately. She thought of the man's words, of his calm defiance. You are afraid because you thought we were weak. The thought made her grip the table tighter. Down in the cell, the human sat quietly. Chains locked his arms and legs, but his posture was relaxed, almost casual. He could hear the whispers through the walls, the sound of footsteps hesitating near his door, the fear in their movements. He smiled faintly to himself. Fear was a powerful ally, even stronger than weapons. He didn't need to fight them. They were already fighting themselves. That night, one guard stood watch outside his chamber. His hands shook as he held his weapon. The silence pressed against him like a weight. Then the prisoner spoke, his voice low but carrying clearly through the metal. Why do you tremble? The guard froze. Silence, human. You fear me because you think I cannot die, but that is not what you should fear. The guard swallowed hard. Then what should I fear? The man leaned forward, his eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. You should fear what will happen when the rest of my kind arrives. The guard's blood ran cold. He turned away, gripping his weapon tighter, but the words echoed in his mind, long after. By the next morning, the whispers had grown louder. Rumors spread that the prisoner was communicating with unseen allies, that he was simply waiting for rescue, that his capture was a trap. Zara tried to crush the talk with orders, with threats, with her own iron presence. But fear is not a chain that can be broken so easily. It grows in the shadows. It multiplies in silence. Finally, Zara descended to the prisoner's chamber herself. The guards snapped to attention, relief washing over their faces as she entered. Even they felt safer when she was near him. The human looked up, calm as ever. You've noticed it, haven't you? He said softly. Zara narrowed her eyes. Noticed what? The way they look at me, the way they whisper, the way they avoid your gaze. Fear spreads faster than fire, Commander, and you cannot control it. Her jaw tightened. You speak as though you are winning some battle here. You are chained, captured, at my mercy. The man smiled again. And yet, who do they fear more, you or me? The word struck her harder than she wished to admit. She stepped closer, her voice low, dangerous. You believe this fear will save you? It will not. I can order your death in an instant. The prisoner's expression did not change. His calmness was unshaken. Perhaps. But if you kill me, you will only confirm what they already believe. That I'm something too dangerous to live. That fear will not vanish, it will only grow stronger. Zara turned sharply and left, her cape whipping behind her. But his words followed her down the corridor like a shadow she could not escape. On the bridge, she looked at her crew. Their eyes no longer held the same loyalty as before. They obeyed, yes, but beneath their obedience, fear ruled. And Commander, Zara for the first time realized something terrifying. She was losing control, not of the ship, but of her people, all because of one human. The warship drifted in silence across the stars, but inside its walls, the silence was breaking. Fear had turned the crew into shadows of themselves. Orders were obeyed slowly. Guards kept their distance from the prisoner's cell. Conversations turned to rumors, then to warnings, and through it all, the human watched. Commander Zara tightened, her grip on control every day, but she could feel it slipping. Her soldiers no longer looked at her with pride. They looked at her with doubt. And when their eyes wandered, she knew exactly where they drifted, toward the thought of the man in chains. The human had become more than a prisoner. He was a story, a living legend born in whispers. Zara had survived wars, assassins, and rebellions, but she had never faced this. She had never fought an idea, and she feared that soon the idea would break free. In the depths of the ship, the human sat in silence. The restraint still held him, but he studied them with sharp eyes. Every flicker of the lights, every hum of the machines, every step of a guard outside the door. He remembered it all. He had spent his life fighting in harsher prisons than this, and he knew one truth. Nothing built by hands was unbreakable, especially when fear had already cracked the walls. One night, as the ship floated through the void, the lights dimmed for routine power cycling. It lasted only 10 seconds. For most prisoners, 10 seconds meant nothing. But for him, it was enough. He had noticed it days earlier, the way the restraints weakened during the cycle. The energy that locked the cuffs flickered, almost invisible, but there. This time he was ready. The moment the lights dimmed, he twisted his wrist hard, muscles straining against steel. Pain burned through his arms, but pain was an old companion. The cuff cracked, a spark burst, biting his skin. The lights returned, his hand was free. When the guard stepped in for inspection minutes later, he found the prisoner slumped forward, head lowered as if asleep. The guard hesitated, then walked closer. That was his mistake. In one sudden movement, the human struck. His freed arm shot out, snapping the guard's weapon from his hands. Before the soldier could scream, the human's other cuff tore loose. With a sharp metallic snap, chains clattered to the floor. The guard froze, eyes wide with terror. The prisoner leaned close, his voice calm and cold. "Run!" The guard obeyed, stumbling back, racing down the corridor in panic. And just like that, the warship was no longer safe. The alarm blared minutes later. Red lights painted the halls. Soldiers scrambled, weapons ready, but their movements were clumsy, their orders panicked. The human moved like a shadow through the corridors, every step precise. He didn't kill unless forced to. He didn't need to. Fear did the work for him. Guards dropped weapons and fled. Others fired wildly, hitting walls instead of him. He slipped into the maintenance level, where the humming heart of the ship pulsed with energy. His eyes scanned the controls. He didn't understand the alien language, but machines spoke a universal tongue. Wires, power lines, systems built on logic. He began working quickly, pulling panels, rerouting circuits, shutting down locks. The ship groaned. Doors sealed themselves and engines stuttered. The warship was no longer in their hands. On the bridge, chaos erupted, systems failing. A technician shouted, "Engines locked. Controls not responding," another cried. Zara stood at the center, her face like stone, but her heart burned with rage. She knew who was behind it. "Seal the prisoner's level," she barked. "It's already sealed, Commander," a soldier answered nervously. "But from the inside." Her eyes narrowed. The human had done it. He had taken control. Deep in the ship's core, the man stood before the glowing control hub. The screens flickered with alien symbols, but he understood what mattered. Life, support engines, weapons. He didn't plan to destroy the ship. Not yet. He wanted them to know. He wanted them to feel powerless, just as they had tried to make him feel. When Zara finally reached the level, the doors refused to open. She slammed, her fist against the panel, her soldiers behind her, weapons raised, but none dared step forward. Then the intercom crackled. His voice filled the ship. Calm. Measured. I don't want war. I don't want blood. But if you keep testing us, you will find out why humanity always survives. The words rolled through every corridor, into every ear. Soldiers lowered their weapons, their hands shaking. The fear that had spread before now became something heavier. Belief. Zara stood frozen. She had faced beasts that crushed armies, machines that leveled worlds. But none had done this. None had broken her ship without firing a shot. The human's words echoed in her mind. We do not break as easily as you think. And now, her soldiers were beginning to believe it too. The alarms quieted. The lights dimmed. And for the first time, Commander Zara felt she was not the master of her warship. The human was still inside his prison. But the truth was clear. The prison no longer held him. The prison belonged to him. The warship was silent. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of fear. Every corridor glowed red with emergency lights. Every console flickered. The crew moved like ghosts, their weapons shaking in their hands. They all knew the truth. The prisoner was no longer a prisoner. Commander Zara stood alone on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the dark screen that showed the sealed lower decks. Somewhere down there, the human waited. Not escaping, not running, simply waiting, as though he knew she would come to him. Her soldiers avoided her gaze. They were warriors bred for loyalty, but loyalty bends when fear grows stronger. Already, she could feel their faith slipping away, and it was all because of him. Her second-in-command stepped forward, his voice careful, respectful, but laced with fear. Commander, we must end this. If we kill him now, the crew will see strength again. If we delay, their loyalty will vanish completely. Zara turned her head slowly, her sharp eyes cutting into him. Kill him? She repeated. Yes, Commander. End him before he ends us. She said nothing. Her gaze returned to the screen, to the sealed doors below. Zara's mind raced. Her empire demanded obedience, demanded results. They had ordered her to prove humanity's weakness, to return with evidence that the fragile species was no threat. But what could she report now? The truth. That a single human had healed before. Their eyes resisted their poisons, broken their machines, and bent the fear of her crew to his will. If she told the truth, the Empire would panic. Or worse, they would order extermination of the human race before it could grow stronger. And if she lied, if she buried the truth, she would betray her oath as a commander. Her loyalty pulled one way. Her instincts pulled the other. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was cold, but a shadow of doubt hid within it. Bring him to me. The soldiers froze. Commander, you cannot— I do not question me, she snapped. They obeyed, though none moved quickly. Fear slowed their steps as they descended toward the sealed decks. In the chamber below, the doors hissed open. Soldiers surrounded the human, weapons raised. He did not fight. He did not move. He simply lifted his head and looked at them with calm eyes. Your commander wants me, he said softly. No one answered. They unbound the last of his restraints and marched him toward the bridge. But it felt less like an escort and more like a ritual, like prey being led to a throne. When Zara finally stood before him, the bridge grew tense. Her soldiers stood on edge, their weapons trembling between duty and fear. Zara stepped forward until only a few paces separated them. She searched his face, looking for weakness, for cracks, for anything she could strike against. But she found nothing. His eyes were calm, his posture unbroken. And for the first time in her life, Zara felt as though she was the one under judgment. You speak of strength, she said slowly. Of survival. Yet you are only one man, one soldier. Why should I believe your kind are more than you? The human tilted his head, his voice low but steady. Because I am not special. I am ordinary. Where I come from, pain is our teacher. Hardship is our cradle. Every human you meet has suffered in some way, and every one of us has learned to rise again. He leaned closer, his eyes never leaving hers. You call us weak because we bleed, but bleeding taught us endurance. You call us fragile because we break, but breaking taught us to grow stronger. You call us mortal because we die, but death taught us to fight for every breath. His words cut deeper than blades. The crew shifted uneasily. Some lowered their weapons. Others glanced at Zara, waiting for her to strike him down to silence him. But Zara said nothing. Her chest rose and fell with a slow, controlled breath. She remembered her empire's command. Prove humans are weak. But in her heart, she knew the truth already. The human stepped back slightly, his voice softer now, almost like a whisper meant only for her. You are not afraid of me. You are afraid of what I represent. Afraid of what happens when the galaxy stops underestimating us. Zara clenched her fists. Her soldiers watched, waiting for her decision. One order from her, and the man would be dead. Another order, and he would live. It was her choice, and the fate of more than just her ship might depend on it. Silence filled the bridge. The hum of the engines seemed louder than ever. Zara's mind raced with images, the Empire demanding obedience. The fear in her soldiers' eyes, the fire in the human's words. She had always believed strength meant control, but now for the first time she wondered if true strength meant something else. Finally she spoke. Her voice was steady, but lower than before. You should already be dead, she said. But you are not, and I cannot decide if that makes you a miracle or a threat. The human smiled faintly. Why not both? Her soldiers stared at her, waiting for her command. Kill him. Release him. Or something in between. The weight of the choice pressed down on her shoulders like the gravity of a dying star. And Commander, Zara, warrior of the Empire, realized that no battle she had fought before could compare to this moment. Because this was not just a choice about a man, it was a choice about the future. The bridge of the warship hung heavy with silence. Every soldier waited, every eye fixed on Commander Zara. One word from her lips could end the human's life. One word could change everything. The human stood calm in the center, unarmed, his wrists still raw from broken restraints. He did not beg. He did not plead. He simply waited, as though he already knew what her answer would be. Zara's thoughts battled like storms inside her mind. Her empire demanded weakness. It demanded proof that humans were fragile, unworthy of fear. But what stood before her was the opposite, a man who refused to break. A prisoner who had turned chains into power. If she killed him now, she would silence the fear for a moment. Her crew might obey again. The Empire might believe her report. But deep inside, she knew the truth would not die with him. It would only spread. One of her commanders stepped forward, voice sharp. Commander, order us, the crew is watching, end him before his poison grows deeper. Another soldier muttered nervously. He is not a man. He is something else. The voices rose. Some demanded death. Others whispered of caution. The bridge was no longer a room of order, but a storm of fear. And at the center of it, the human's calm voice broke the noise. You already know the truth. You don't need to fear me. You need to fear what happens when others like me arrive. His words silenced them all. Zara's chest tightened. She remembered her empire's command. Prove humans are weak. But she also remembered the look in her crew's eyes, their fear, their doubt, their broken faith. If she chose wrong now, she would lose not just her ship, but herself. She stepped closer, her eyes locked on his. If I let you live, the Empire will see it as betrayal. If I kill you, I kill the truth itself. The human tilted his head. The truth doesn't die, Commander. It only waits. You can bury it for a time, but one day it rises again. For a long moment, Zara said nothing. Her soldiers held their breath, and she turned sharply. All of you out, leave us. The crew hesitated, shocked. That is an order, she barked. One by one they obeyed, leaving the bridge until only Zara and the human remained. Silence filled the chamber. Zara's armor glinted under the red emergency lights. She stood before the man, her weapon in hand, the weight of choice burning in her chest. Finally, she lowered the blade. "You should not exist," she whispered. "Yet you do. And perhaps the galaxy is not ready to face what you are." She moved to the console and began typing commands. The ship's systems obeyed, screens glowing with false data. "What are you doing?" the human asked. "I am rewriting." "The report," she said. "The Empire will hear what they want to hear, that you were weak, broken, and unworthy of attention. They will not know what I have seen." He studied her silently. "And why do this? Why lie for me?" Zara paused, her eyes narrowing. "Not for you, for the galaxy. If my people learn what humans are, they will try to destroy you. And I fear the cost of that war, perhaps too high even for the Empire." The human's lips curved faintly. "So, you choose to protect us?" Zara shook her head. "No, I choose to protect balance, for now." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "But hear me, human. If your kind truly are what you claim, then one day you will step into the galaxy, openly. And when that day comes, everything will change." She turned away, her voice sharp again. "You will leave this ship. My crew will believe you perished during containment, but you will vanish from my sight." The human studied her for a moment longer. Then he nodded slowly. "You fear us, yet you also respect us. That is wise, Commander. Wiser than most." Hours later, under the cover of darkness, an escape pod launched silently from the warship. Inside sat the human, his eyes fixed on the stars. The pod carried him back toward the vast unknown, back toward his people. As the engines hummed softly, he whispered to himself, "They think we are weak. They think we are fragile. But one day, they will all learn." Back on the bridge, Zara watched the pod vanish into the void. Her crew believed she had destroyed the human. None questioned her. None doubted her again. But inside, she carried a secret heavier than any weapon. She had seen the truth with her own eyes. Humans were not weak. They were something else entirely. And if the galaxy ever discovered it, the age of the Empire might end forever.